Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is a Surety Pro review focusing on aerial application. Due to the time constraints of the webinar, we will not be taking questions during the webinar. If you do have questions, please feel free to email myself or call us here at Agridata to help you out with any of those types of questions. This webinar will be recorded and placed on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. We won't be able to get into too much detail on certain subjects. Again, it's just a review, and some things we won't be able to touch on at all, but we'll show you how you can find information on that, on how to do some of these procedures. Again, it's Surety Pro review. We assume you have some knowledge of the Surety program, especially navigation around the mapping program itself. So with that, we'll get started. So we'll start out with creating and saving borders within the Surety system, Surety Pro system. Everything, once you create a border, it is tied to a client level. So what we want to do is, first thing you do before you start selecting or drawing boundaries is to select or create a client from your client list. We're just going to create a new client. You create a new client by clicking the little pencil to the right of the box, and you see some controls. So if you don't have any clients in there yet, you won't see these. You'll just hit the plus sign, but there are some other tools you can use. Once clients are selected, you can edit a client, you can delete, you can find records if you've got quite a few clients involved. But today we're going to add a new client. You can fill out this information here. Only information needed, though, is the first piece of information. Some of this, if you fill out, will then show up on your forms in the client boxes. So that would be up to you if you would like to do that. Once select created, you can close this out by clicking the X, and now it's available in the drop-down list right there. It'll default to whatever your set view is for your company or location. Now, some of you might not see location here. Location is set if you want to separate individual team members into separate areas to keep organization. You do that in the Subscription Studio. If you have any questions on that, you can give us a call how that works. So we get to our area of interest. Several ways of creating boundaries or getting your boundaries set up. One is using the FSA fields. If you have the FSA fields, these are from 2008. But in some cases, like for example this one here, this is a 2018 image. You see this boundary hasn't changed much in 10 years. So some of these might work out well. So if you're going to use just an existing FSA boundary, you just use the select button. You would put your X in the boundary, and then you would come over to save boundaries, save borders. Again, make sure you have your client selected before you start doing this. So we're going to go hit save borders, and this one will allow you now, you can give it a name, farm name, or you can give it a field ID. You don't have to give it anything if you don't want, but I recommend giving it a field ID at least so you can understand where they're at. So we'll just call this one Northwest. I'm not going to give it a farm name. In this case, if you did, you just put it in here. Once a farm name's entered for that client, it will show up then as a drop down the next time you would save border, and then just hit save. It'll say borders updated. It'll turn a color, most likely green. You'll see white acreages, and then now it shows up as a border under your borders layer. Okay. So if we would zoom out and we came in and we picked a client and we picked a field, it would zoom then to that section. That's using the select feature. Now the next one would be using drawing. Well, let's skip drawing. Let's go to smart select. So let's say you have a layer such as field FSA fields, but you're not. It's not quite what you want on your map. So what you can do, for example, is edit it at an existing boundary and change how it looks. So now, without having to redraw, you can also do this on any custom area, such as an imported alternative boundary layer or a parcel data layer, anything with polygons. And it's a convenient tool. It might mean just a few changes you need to do in an existing FSA boundary, which is maybe faster than drawing. But you can do that by using the Smart Select tool. Now this Smart Select tool will also work on editing an existing boundary also. So we'll look at the editing of that. So you go Smart Select, you would select the boundary you want to modify. It turns purple with the with red dots or nodes. These are where the line segments change. And what you'd want to do at this point is come in and make sure you can edit and see what you want to see. Sometimes it's best to zoom in. You can use the zoom in by using your scroll button on your mouse and zoom in, or you can use the zoom in and come back. It should hold on for you there. If you zoom in and out and these edit or a drawing disappears, you need to come up to Tools, Options, Option Page, and you need to click on Select Drawing Fields and Maintain. If that has somehow been unchecked, you will lose your drawings anytime you zoom or pan. Once you do that, hit Save. Make sure that it's set. Okay, so we're going to edit this. Of course, editing, there's three editing tools. One is to move a node. So to move a node, you'd hover your mouse over the red dot approximately on top, left click and hold, and then you have the capability of moving that node wherever you need to go. Another thing you can do is add a new node. Adding a new node allows you to add a node by simply right clicking. You can add a new node into a line segment by clicking on the line, or you can add a new node outside the line segment by right clicking there. The other thing you do is delete a node. So if we're going to delete this node here, very simple task. You act like you're going to move the node. So you hover over it, left click and hold, and just drag it over another node. And as you see, it absorbs. So that's how you would delete. And then when you're done with your boundary, you would just hit Save Borders, same as before, and give it a name. If you have a farm name you would like, you can give it a farm name or use an existing farm name. If farm names exist, there'll be a drop-down box here, and hit Save. Now we've created that boundary. Third option would be the import boundary, another option, third option would be the draw field. And drawing the field, fairly easy and very nice tools within Aggregate's within the Surety Pro program to help you draw tools. You can leave the FSA field boundary line on if you need it as a reference, or you can turn it off. So how we begin, so make sure you got a client selected again. Then we go to draw field. We begin drawing our fields, and we're just going to draw an area along the river out here. So we begin with our starting point, where that is. Okay, by left clicking. If you have, make sure you have help on, off checked here. You will see information over here. If you don't see this information, go up to select and then back to drawing. It should show up here on the lower right side. And this will give you information while you're drawing. So as we start, I'm just going to start here. Left click to create the first starting node, and now I'll go with my line segment, click another time. There's a left click to create another node. Left click again and continue left clicking as you draw. I would make sure do not do it quickly. Make nice clean left click so that if you double click, it will close the polygon, and if you're not very far along, you may need to shut down. Now we have very nice resolution imagery. And I think this latest in North Dakota is 2-foot resolution. Take advantage of that while you're drawing and you want to create an accurate boundary. You don't have to be zoomed out to the full extent while you draw. You can actually zoom in using your scroll mouse, or zoom in before you start, and then start drawing, and we'll show you. You see, you can take advantage of the high resolution of the imagery. I'm just going to follow here, and I'm going to start to get a little sloppy here. So one thing that happens is say, well, what do I do now when I get to the end? Well, we have a panning option available while drawing. And so what you do is you just move your mouse away from the last node you created, and then left click and hold. Instead of left clicking to create a node, you would left click and hold. And this allows you then to move the map. So this is again a way to take advantage of the high resolution imagery by zooming in while drawing or even editing, and take advantage of that. Remember this, you do not need to stay at the section level or see the whole field to draw. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of quickly go ahead here, just for time's sake, and we'll finish this off here. So when you are done drawing, there's two options to close the field boundary. One is to double click, and if I double click now, it would snap this to this, or you can just come over the first starting point, click, and it also will select it. Now it hasn't been saved yet. It's just a drawing on the map. You can go and do some fine-tune editing like we showed in Smart Select right now. And then when you are done, you have the capability in the save borders. You can also punch holes into these boundaries. So if I want to pull this out, or if you got another area that you need to pull out, all you would do is just start drawing in that area. First point makes it clear so you can see. And as you see over here, I'll show the punch out of 0.1 acres. But if you zoom back out, so that would punch a hole. So you can do that. If you needed to continue drawing, you can also continue drawing another boundary here if you need to. Okay, now once you're done, now we will come up here to save borders. Again, we'll give it a name. Borders updated, so now you have updated that border. And again, you can smart select and edit borders if you need to, by just making sure your borders layer is on and clicking in the border. If you have FSA fields on, remember that the the border is going to take precedent over that. Okay, so now we have that. Now, if you need to change, if you do do an edit in Smart Select again, you just hit Save Border. It'll work. If you need to edit the name or the farm name, this is where edit borders come in. It does not put it in edit mode. It just changes the name. So remember that. So if I came in here and I selected this border right here, and I go to edit borders, it's going to give me a name. I could change the name here and hit save, and it would change the name, or you can add it to a farm or change the farm name at this point. Okay, so let's move on here. We're going to let's look at forms and how to work with some of these forms. So once you've so if you've been using this or working with this, you know the forms, you can create maps, of course, and let's just pick a field here to work with. So I picked SE99, that makes it light blue. So you understand the Fsa map makes a map of the area that you have on screen. It will include any other layers that may be on. One thing you can remember is that you do not need to have a boundary active to create an Fsa map. You can create an Fsa map at any time. One thing some people might want to see is, well, I want a nice Fsa map of the field, or I want it zoomed to the field. How do I do that? Well, one navigation tool we want to talk about is when you have zoom in, you can draw a box. So if you click zoom in and you left click and hold, you can draw a box to center things. And so looking at that there, now I could create a nice Fsa field map of that field. So your center point now is in the center of the image. Another thing we're going to look at, let's pick this field again. So the form itself. So let's look at Arrow GPA, which is one of the more common forms used. This form allows you to use the system like a work order. You open up this form. This form is available to everyone. It'll fill in certain information, like your company information. If you did have a owner-operators, it would be what we call client here. So don't confuse client here with owner-operator here. It's a little confusing at this point. But this would be maybe subcontract. This may be somebody that works for the ag retailer, or works for consultant or something like that. See, the field ID shows up. We do not put the crop in. You need to pick a crop. And then you can fill out information from products. Before we do that, let's look at this little airport here. If you're interested in having information such as heading and distance to your field on your form, we have a little database here, and you can add and delete airports. So what you would do is you would put in your airport name and put in the lat long. You can either be decimal minutes, degrees, minutes, seconds. It'll convert it to decimal degrees for you, and then it'll have that information. So whenever you select a field, so in this case, South 99, it'll say from the West Fargo Airport, and it's 160 degrees at 12 miles. So if you're interested in that, you can do that. So next thing we want to talk about, of course, we can start putting our information. But as a Surety Pro user, you have access to the crop protection database from CDMS. How do you access that? Well, you use that to build your information, your product information. So you come into products and you hit the little pencil to go to your product list, or your favorites, I guess you could call it. You'll see the information there on the products. Now, to add a new product, what you can do, of course, you can delete and edit a product, but to add a new product, you hit the plus, and it opens up our product information page. So you enter information. Now, You could go and enter your information here yourself and hit save, or you can go and select from a list of products. You would click this button here. It would open up a database, and now you can go in and search for products. So you can search by EPA number, name, manufacturer, so on and so forth. Once you've picked your product, and I'm just going to pick something here, so I'm just picking a product at the top list here. Don't worry if it's a product you don't use or not. I'm just using it as an example. And you can see as it has detailed information, you can see if it's true or not. Once I've selected, it turns green. There's a couple of things I can do. I can hit the yellow eye and here, and it's going to give me other information, what's available. Also, then I can also get the label and SDS here. It'll open it up as a PDF. Okay. The other thing you do is hit add. What this does now, it'll bring information that it has into the product list. Now, again, we don't have all details on all products. Certain things you're going to have. So if you need REI, you'll need to put that in there. If you want grazing interval, you need to put that in there. But once you have done that, you can also select these things if you need to. Now, once you have this information in, you hit save, and now it becomes part of your product list. Okay, and so that you can pick it there. So if I pick a product I have on the list, it'll fill in some of the information. If you had rate in there, you could put that, or GPA. You can have that. Also, now what you can do from this form, once you have the product on your favorites list, you can, once you pick it, you can hit the little eye here, and now it's going to bring up that information that you saw before. And also now you have the capability of getting SDS and label information on it. So so that's how you can, whoops, I lost my form here. Let's go back. So you can pick your products now, put in your rates. You can put in your gallons per acre. You can get totals and everything else that we can do here. So now anything you've set would be here on the REI, and other information would be in the notes. Let's pick our crop here. Okay, so as you see, we have this in place. You can hit save. The status, which does not show up on the form itself, but can be used as an attribute, can be used kind of a work order management. So if somebody comes in and you set up a product, but you're not ready to go out and spray, you can say it's been requested. You can accept it, and then when it's complete, we can hit complete it. These do not autofill at this point yet, but this information now is available. Your date ordered will always be the date that the current date. So if you need to back up, you can on that. And once you have got all the information to start out, or whatever information, you would just hit save form. There's some other options here. You can change the color of the map, the field boundary, and the labels on here if you need to. Of course, you can view PDF, email, and save PDF here, print from here. We do have, for SatLock, you can download the job. So if you want to get this boundary or boundaries out to your vehicle, there's also another way you can do that. Or if you have another console make, you just would do an export. We'll look at that real quick. And so on and so forth. So once you're done here, we'll hit save form. That becomes saved, of course. You can close this down, and now this turns color because we have the aerial with GPA form here, and you can change its default color. You can also, I didn't enter anything under status, So if I did, it would color it based on status. So now you have this information here. And this is controlled by this layer right here. Now we mentioned, let's move away from the form for a little bit here. We'll come back to it when we look at log layers. But one thing you can see that we could export that job file, which is a specific file type for your SATLOG consoles to bring boundaries into them. Another thing you can do is if you have your field or fields, if you have multiple fields chosen, this may work if you have multiple fields chosen outside of, but multiple forms, you just want to come in and select your fields. You can also export boundaries here. So you go up to export current map. Okay, so you would want them selected, of course, which ones you want. And then you can come up here. And so all other than SATLOG, all other consoles will take a shapefile. So you can just click on shapefile, give it a name, and then export, and it will download a zip file for you. And then you can unzip that, or maybe your console takes a zip file, but you can unzip that, and those files then can be imported into your console. If you're using SATLOG, again, you can do a SATLOG job file, output file name. You can do a wireless transfer if you're all set up for that with the latest consoles, or you just hit download to download that. Let's see. Oh, I forgot one thing there. Let's move back up to saving borders. I forgot about importing borders. Let's take a look at that. We're not going to go through that, but you would use the import feature here, borders, and then use that dialog. Best way to find support if you need to right away is go to our Agridata wiki. You can access that through help, support, or on our web page under support. And you would type in import borders here, and you would come up with this result as it came up. And usually the first one is the first one, so let's click on that. And now you'll get borders, how to import borders in the Surety Pro, and also details on the web page and how to do that. So if you need to import borders, it's a shapefile. Take a look at this. Okay, so let's move along. Let's look at adding logs. Again, we're not going to go, because we have 4 different manufacturers, soon 5 different manufacturers that we need. You can add logs from. We're not going to go through adding logs. I just want to show that, again, to import a log file, if you have them saved, you would do import and then as applied logs, pick your manufacturer and move from there. So again, this is something I would come out here and I would go import logs in our, what we call our wiki, or Agridata Inc. docs. Give it some time because it's searching all of our documentation for what we have. And once you get there, there's several things, import custom layer, well, maybe that one. Yeah, so you got the individual imports. I guess maybe the best would be just the logs. And that would probably give you a better. Okay, so you come here and you can see the import part, and it'll allow you to go to different areas. So if you want to do custom layers, that's not the one I'm looking at. Let's go back one more time here. Oh, we call it uploading. There we go. So we have videos that work on that, other types of things. Let me get to there. So there's a video. And then we have this one right here. Upload and view as applied log files of Surety. So you just need to do a little searching. It's there once you find it. We got instructional videos. We'll go through each different make. Regarding AgNav, please follow some of these instructions exactly, because otherwise it's not going to work properly. But if you do have questions on this, if you're having problems, please give us a call. We can help you walk through some of that to get that works. But we do bring in those as-applied logs from those makes. And then soon we'll also have the AgPilot X import. So once the log is in place, let's look what it looks like. So once you import a log, so here's the field I selected. Once you import a log, it's going to show up on the log layers. Now, it'll show up right now based on the map. Any log layer in your map view will show up based on the client. So the next iteration of the software will get better management on that. So if you start to get a lot of log layers, we'll help some of that management down the line here. But once you bring in a log layer, this is what it's going to look like. Each individual log, it's going to have the date, the time, what the log file name was, and it's going to have 4 layers that you can turn on. So first we'll look at spray path, and that's just the lines representing your spray path. We have flight path, which you could zoom out here, and as if you notice, you can zoom to the individual log, and when you do that, it'll zoom to the full extent. So in this case, this log is not only this field, it's got multiple fields, and you can see the full flight plan here. Let's go back to the field though. Another thing you can do, you can turn on is spray path, and then spray path, and then with a 10% overlap. Now you can set the colors for each one of these. You can also have labels if there are available for each one of these. Now, when you go, let's turn off the area with GP in the background. Let's just leave let's say the spray path on, for example. Now, if I go to Fsa Map here, you notice that that will show up. Those lines will show up on that. Another thing you can do is you can add this log to an existing form. So let's turn the form back on. So you've started the form, you went out, did the job, you came back, you upload the log file. Now you can tie it now to a form itself. So let's look at the form. So we're going to go look at the area with GPA as the form. We're going to edit an existing form. Okay, so we have the form. Now, don't mind the dates. I have to set the dates based on log files. So a log file will not add to a form before the date ordered date. It will only add to a form if the date ordered is older than the log file itself. So keep that in mind if you just don't see any logs show up here ever. Okay, so now we have the form. We want to add the log. We come in here. You pick whichever you want. And then once you do that, you see it shows up on the map here. It'll also fill in date of application, start time, end time, acres applied. You'll have to fill in the other information here. So if you got a second one, right now we can only handle 2. If you need more than 2, we might have to do a custom form for you. So now that's how you would add a log. And now if you save that, that log will always be tied to that form. So our log layers. Now we're going to move on another nice tool in the form manager. And we're going to look at the form manager for managing any type of forms, particularly your aerial forms. So if you notice when you click client, if you've added forms, you'll get forms. Now, if you haven't, or you're not doing color by, you just do a standard color. You see these colors show up. You can turn those off based on that. And then we also have pins if you have those on. In this case, I have it color coded based on if it's been requested or completed, and that's that status that you saw. So, but to manage forms, as you start to get quite a few forms, you can manage forms through the form manager. Several ways of managing forms. You can manage by the client, or you can manage by your company or location. You can manage by year. I have it set to 2018 because I have no completed things for 2019, and then you can choose which one you want to work with. So let's take a look at the form manager itself here. Number one, you see that we have the individual forms listed here. We have attribute columns across the top. To change these, you would come up to choose columns next to the form, and it brings them to your column selector. So these are the ones that are existing there. You can, of course, delete. You can delete an attribute by clicking here. You can, if it's a numerical, you can total the column. So you can see here's a total of actual acres. You can move these around. So you can move this to here by just left clicking, hold, and dragging. So you can move these around. Also, you can add a column. So these are all the attributes that are available right now in that column. So you could add one of those, and they would add. When you're done, you hit save. So I put the product name up front here. I move some stuff around, but that's how you would kill. And then we won't get into it, but you can create a custom filter. So if I just want to, for example, I create a custom filter for status requested, and it would only show me the fields that are requested. If you went to the company level, it would show you across all clients. And this is a way you could select multiple fields to do a job independent of the client. Let's move on here. Zoom2 Results. Well, let's go down here. So you have your information. Let's remove the status filter. So you got all the forms for that client. And you can have as many as here as possible. If you have more than 50, you can show 50, 100, 200 or more. This are selection boxes. If you click this, it will select all forms in that line, or you can go and select individual. If you need to zoom to an area on the map, you hit the plus sign there, and it will zoom to those. If you select all and you come up here, you hit zoom to results. It'll zoom to anything checked here, the extents. You can print selected, it'll print those individual forms. You can delete forms from here. You can edit a form by just clicking on that form in the list here. We do have some export features, so if you want to export a form, what we mean by export is that you can export as a shape file, because each form has a boundary and it can have all the form manager columns in that shape file, or all columns. And we're experimenting with some other things here. You could also try tab delimited. Got some limited work on that, but one thing we're doing is we're looking at creating better ways of reporting this information from the shape, from the form. So down the line here, going into 2020, as the new interface comes out, we're going to be looking at better capabilities of doing reports from those forms, by client, by company, by products, so on and so forth. We're working on that. So if you only want to show selected here, you just click that and it will only list what you have selected. As you notice, as I'm selecting here, you can also see that it selects on the map. So whatever you select here also selects those forms on the map. So that's the form manager. It allows you to, so if I want to do, I'm going to do a requested. I'm going to select these two fields. And now you could come back to the map page here and do an export. So if you want the boundaries, either the job or shapefile. And so that gives you the capability of selecting those fields and moving forward. So now, again, you can grab each form from here and edit from this. So that's Form Manager. Very simple. There's a few other things you can do with that. We won't get into more detail there than that. Play around with that with your existing forms, see how that works. One thing that we do have in Surety Pro is what's called Dossier Studio. As you can see, you see some of these things called like Dossier Manager. You see Paradigm. On the actual forms themselves, you'll see Dossier Studio. Well, what Dossier Studio is, and you can also access it from here, is the capability of bringing multiple pages in. So you can bring in multiple forms and maps. And really, it's to create single PDFs. We don't have a print feature yet. We're looking at that, but you could create the PDF and then print from there. So you could create multiple PDFs. And other things you can do some markups on that. So if you need to mark something on a map real quick, you could use some of these symbols to mark a map other than what is available from FA Obstructions or so on. So you can use that. So let's look at how we can take advantage of that. So if you can come in and you could select a field, and you can create an FSA map if you like. That's one of the things you create for this. Let's say it's a job. Now, you could add this to Dossier Studio. What you would do is just click the Dossier Studio button. Now, it's going to bring up Dossier Studio and add it. Now, what you want to do, if you want to add more to this, you would not close Dossier Studio. You just either reduce it or click come back to the map. So also now I'm going to bring up the form. I'm going to edit the existing form. So I got products, you'd have products, you'd have everything here. I can add that to Dossier Studio by just hitting Dossier Studio. So if I come back to Dossier Studio, you'll see now that I have the FSA map and I have the aerial form. Now you could add other fields if you have more forms and fields that work with that job here. And what this would allow you to do is you could save this, of course, if you want. It would open Dossier. It would also open those maps for you, or you can export and print. You could also, again, do some mock-ups by clicking a symbol and dropping it on the map. So several things you can do with Dossier Studio. Again, it's something you can play around with and take a look at and see if it is of value to you. One way you can take advantage of it, again, is from the Form Manager. So I came in and I went status requested. I want those two fields. Okay. So this would be two forms, but I also want an FSA map for each one, or of the areas. I can come to what we call our paradigm. And this allows you to go from Form Manager to Dossier Studio, click on Paradigm. We have some pre-created paradigm lists. And so I'm going to do the Form Manager view plus the same form in an FSA map. And if I click on that, it'll open up Dossier Studio. Add an overview map if you want, FSA map for field 1, aerial GPA form, FSA map for field 2, aerial GPA form. And so now you could save this as a PDF or save as a PDF and print all 5. So that's what Dossier Studio will work for you. You could also at this time also do, it's not selected. I take that back, never mind. You could rearrange these if you wish, so on and so forth. So that's Dossier Studio. If you have any use for that, a nice little tool that we'll be expanding on. Okay, we're going to come back and look at some individual layers that are of value to you. One will be, of course, we want to look at Fsa obstructions. So let's look here. So you can start to see, in this case, under boundaries, we have what we call Fsa obstructions. Those are available here. You can change the color of those. Okay, you can give it labels. So you can label based on what you have. I have obstacle type, above ground height, above means level type in my list. Let's zoom in on one of these. So right here you'll see it. Fsa obstruction is tower, and the labels 320 feet above ground. If you have these on and you do your Fsa map, you're going to see those listed. Of course, you can make them bigger if you need to. We keep it fairly up to date based on what the FAA puts out their updates. Here again, here's a transmission line. There's windmills. They're adding smaller structures like cell towers or temporary towers. I know they're doing more and more work to try to do a better job at keeping this up to date, and we want to work with them and try to bring you the most up-to-date information we can. Again, though, this information is built off of the FAA obstructions list. The other one is if you are a member, or if you're in a member state and you have access to Driftwatch, we have that. So you just turn that on, and it'll show those areas. So there's these areas, basically there's beehives, so on and so forth, based on the Driftwatch information. You can also, you can also do a selection. Let's see if that works right here. Yeah, you would not create, you would edit, and then it'll show you information on that, either that polygon, that field, or those beehives, if you need to contact anybody. Again, this is something if you do an Fsa map. Oh, come on now. It will show up on that. You can do some things with the symbology and the labels, but you can change the label list if you need to. Now, those are only available in the states that have Field Watch. If you're interested in learning more about Field Watch, what it is an organization. It's got, I don't know what number of states are at, 20-some states already across the U.S. or more, where those states will put information, allow people in those states to come into their system and put in beehive information, organic field, sensitive crop information, and then if you're an applicator for a small fee, you can join Field Watch, and then once you've joined, you can turn that layer on within our system. We call it Driftwatch, but Driftwatch is Field Watch, and under Field Watch is Driftwatch and Bee Watch, so you can get that information. Next is we do have a custom layer for sensitive borders. You can create your own sensitive layer. You notice under our forms, we have one called sensitive area. So let's say if you have a sensitive area, you can go in, draw a polygon, representing a sensitive area. And now if you click sensitive area, you can enter information, and we'll just call it whatever you want to call it. We'll just call it sensitive crop. I spell it right. And then you can enter some other information. You save, and now this layer will show up here. It's called sensitive area. You can come in and do all the things: symbology, labels, color by, so you could color by different crops, so on. And that is available across the company level. It's independent of the client. So, and again, you have your field. Whatever you create, if you create the aerial map, it's going to show up on that area map along as the FAA obstructions or a FEMA map. It will show up. So you can create your own custom or sensitive area. And then, of course, if you need more information or you need something else, such as keeping track of different crops or varieties, in information or ability to notify people or keep track of where they are around some of the fields that you work with, you could also have us create some custom layers for you, some custom forms also if you need custom forms. Keep that in mind. You can contact us for more information on that. Well, with that, that'll be all we have today. Again, if you have questions or comments, or just need to have some help with anything, feel free to give us a call or drop us an email. My email is available there on the screen. My direct phone number is also there, or you can call our main number, 701-746-8580, and we will be glad to help you out. With that, thank you for attending, and have a good day.